Welcome everyone, welcome to another episode of Son of Elijah. My name is Mac the Lion and I'm your host for this program. So we continue our series on engaging the principalities, powers and rulers of darkness that were dominating and ruling over South Africa. And now going beyond that, we are trying to bring you to a place where you can understand the dynamics of how to engage them, take them on and defeat them fairly. You see, life is a conflict. It's comprised of all types of conflicts, and at the core of that conflictus is a creature by the name of Satan, also known as the devil, also known as the serpent. Satan being the tag that represents his leadership over all principalities, and the devil being his tag for his leadership over the seducers, also known as powers of darkness. And finally, the serpent, which is his tag for the leadership over the rulers of darkness, or the kings as it is tagged. And principalities control territories because the kingdom of darkness has sectionated the earth into partitions, and the principalities rule over territories specifically to corrupt the individuals that are there, while the rulers of darkness work on the mind, and then the powers of darkness work on the body. So devils focuses on that, and that's why when you leave a group of people and go to another place, you will discover that the type of sins or behavior that is conducted here is different from another place. And you move from that also and you move to like in a different nation, you will discover that that nation has a different culture, different behavioral, different functionality, and that is ruled by or micromanaged by the rulers of darkness. Then finally you go to families, which is the smallest unit of all this, and that's really where the core of the work comes from, because that's where the principalities really work. Now, moving on very quickly, I need to explain something to you. When I saw that encounter in the month of January 2013, I told you how I saw prehistoric beings emerge out of the great waters of the Indian Ocean, because I was staying in Durban in a place called Mshlanga, close to the Mshlanga rocks, and that whole place is a waterfront because they had beaches that stretched all the way from the main Durban city where the harbour is and goes all the way to Mshlali and all the way to Balito and places further down, so all the way to Richards Bay, because all this is a very unextensive coastline. So I was in this hotel at Mshlanga, and it just so happens that that day the Lord wanted to show me something, and I saw 5 prehistoric beings. They were majestic, they were huge, they looked like T-Rex and all these creatures that had died from the dinosaur ages. And when I saw them emerge from the waters, and as the waters parted for them as they all emerged, I was thrown aback. I said, what is this? Because I've never seen this before. And I think this was one of the first time that I was having a genuine encounter with creatures that were coming from the deep in the magnitude of that size. I have seen things before that, but that was the first time I was seeing something as huge, bigger than a ship, as it were. Massive creature, living creature. And as it came out of the waters, I saw their long tails and everything. But one information that I will never forget, I saw 5 creatures emerge out of the waters. They look virtually the same, but one thing that I noticed that I believe is one of the landmark or one of the essential ingredients of that revelation was that I noticed that each of them had a crown on their head. Each of the creatures had a crown, a golden crown on their head. And then I heard the voice of God. He said, these are the kings, or these are the entities that control and rule over South Africa, and especially this city where you are. And he told me, said, for that which I have brought you here to even begin, these 5 creatures needs to be taken out. And that means they have to operate under my feet. I have to overcome them, because God wanted to deliver a mandate to me. God wanted to deliver a message that was going to be beneficial for the body of of Christ, and it was going to be one of the largest deposit or largest dump of information and knowledge that will be given to a singular mortal. And you may not understand this now because I'm not trying to blow anything big. I'm not interested in those things. And besides, these encounters, I've had them more than a decade ago, and yet there was no peep squeak from my mouth. I never shared it with anyone out there or make it public. I'll publish it. I did not, because that's not really how I do my things. But it just so happens that I wanted to teach a message on the false church, and I needed to take that piece of information, and then I shared that encounter. In sharing that encounter, the video did better than all the videos and literally was blowing up. And as a result of that, a lot of questions started coming in. And then I saw that it interested a lot of people. They really wanted to know right down the middle, what is this all about? And interestingly enough, it came from everywhere. Both the Indians want to know, both the whites want to know, both the blacks want to know, so everyone. So it's not even something that a special group wants to know. Everybody literally wants to know, how did you get this information, and what are the basics for it? So when I saw that, I now decided, okay, let me go a bit deeper, because I wasn't even interested on running on this trajectory. I just wanted to teach and train and do some other things using the son of Elijah. Because in the son of Elijah, if you watch the montage, it says very clearly constructing the serpent and dismantling the installations of mystery Babylon on the earth. And that's what I really just wanted to explain. And in order for me to explain how the mystery Babylon was connected to the false church, I had to share that vision, and that's what brought about this whole thing. So now, having now decided, okay, let's engage, because people say they want to do battles, but they need to know more. They need to know how they need to do these things, because these are spirits that are influencing the nation. Now you need to understand this. Every country, every state, every province, every land on the earth is sectionated, and principalities have dominion in those places. But some principalities are doing better than others, and I'm talking about destructive wise under Satan's leadership, because of the dynamics of their wickedness and the volume of evil they've consistently pushed out. Also, there are cultures that are more vulnerable than others. There are places where the dynamics of that wickedness penetrated faster than others, and based on that, those principalities are able to control. There are also in some territories where numbers really account. For example, in China, we have 1.4 billion people. So if there are principalities who are controlling territories as it is in that place, their influence to some level will be higher than a country with just 1 million people, simply because they have more numbers, they have more resources, and that also means the price will be bigger just because of the volume. So demographics play a role. That's why in most nations of the earth, the big cities, the policies of the big cities, the way of life of the big cities always control the temperature of the nation. While the outbacks, the wildernesses and places who are rural almost don't have a say. Not because the people there don't count, but simply because the principalities are in the municipality that are in the city center of the ground zero of that nation. And as a result of that, also where the demographics and the numeric establishment of people is higher. So that also means that spirit will have more influence or harvest more resources, and since it has more resources, it is more powerful. Since it's more powerful, it wields more control, because now there are more numbers, and that's exactly what is occurring in our world today. And Satan is always after where the numbers are. Whatever the people are, he doesn't care about the rich or the poor, the broke or the struggler. He's not interested. What he's interested is in the numbers. He wants to destroy humanity as much as he can, and he wants to make the highest impact in some of the densely populated places. That's why if you go to some of the biggest cities in the world, you would also notice that is also the cities that have the worst corruption of all kind, whether it's sexual corruption, whether it's financial corruption, whether it's controlling people, whether it's drugs, whether it's manipulation, whether it's political influences and corruption. You will notice that it's always where the game is higher and the numerics are there. That's where the corruption is deeper. It's people will say, for example, oh, I don't want to have dealings with ladies who are in the city because the ladies in the city are spoiled, or they are this, or they are that, or they are feminists, or they think a certain way, they think they are modern women, and they have all these things that the traditional family doesn't work. And I tell them, then go rural. If you go to the rural, you'll find the regular everyday woman who is ready to comply, do what you want, align perfectly. Simply why? Because she's in the rural, she's in the hinterlands. The corruption of the modern day feminist agenda, its dragnet doesn't care about those places. There's a reason they call it flyover country, because the people who live there, it's not because they are not relevant, but Satan is not finding the numbers. So as a result of that, he will not invest as much resources that he will require. Why would you put an army of 1,000 devils in a place where, or in a town where there are just 20 people? So if you corrupt 20 people, what is that? But if there's a city of 20 million that is 500 miles away, that's where Satan would deploy 1,000 or 100,000 devils to go and tempt people, to go and lure them, to corrupt them. That's how it works. So you have to understand the dynamics of wickedness that the enemy deploys. And in that same vein, even much more, God also wants us to reach numbers, and those numbers also embattled. Let me tell you something. Remember when Jesus was brought out of Egypt after his parents had run there because the Lord told them to move there because people that wanted to kill the child, including Herod the king, right? So eventually when they all died and the child was no more threatened, the Lord told him, Joseph, to take his son Jesus and his wife, and that they should return back to the land of their birth. And as they journeyed, the Bible said they came to Jerusalem, and then they went past Jerusalem and journeyed all the way because they were scared that maybe there are still some embers of individuals who may still be sympathetic to that cause of killing the child or finding him. And then they just moved further down, and then they ended up in the wilderness countryside area of Nazareth. And Jesus grew up there, and that community was very wonderful, very excellent, very exquisite. But you need to understand something. If Jesus had lived in Nazareth all his life and never ventured into Jerusalem or any of the neighboring towns, I'm telling you the truth, up till today it would have been impossible for him to even be killed. Even though he came to die, the devil would not have been able to find anyone in the countryside to kill him. But every time Jesus ventured and go near Jerusalem, where the king is, where Herod is, where Pilate is, where the political elite is, where the educational elite is, where the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, all the power forces were all concentrated in Jerusalem. That was the time, every time he stepped into that territory, there was a provocation. There was a provocation. They wanted him killed. They wanted him to answer questions. They wanted to know what is his mission. They wanted to know who he was. All why? Because that is where the battle is. The battle is always in ground zero, and ground zero is where the city center is, and that's where principalities are. So if you look at the map of the earth, when you go to any city center, that's where the ground zero of the principalities are. And if you want to know the type of spirits that are work there, just go there and find out what is the prevalent behavioral wickedness that is very prevalent in that city. If you see there's a lot of high level of murder, then you can already tell what the principality looks like and what he's working on. If you see there's high level of alcohol abuse of substance, drugs and all that, you could already tell what type of spirit is at work there. If you notice there's a high level of armed robbery and people shooting for money, love of money is very high, then you could already tell that there's a spirit of greed, avarice, and people are willing to risk their life even to the uttermost just to have it. So you would always see that he always plays back to what you find on ground. So that's how the ground zero principle works. So when you come into a place, you know. Now, when I was in Durban, what was unique about Durban was because the principalities that were controlling Durban was also dominating the whole nation, because their influence was a national influence. That was why God insisted that I go to no city but Durban. So Durban is the spiritual nerve center for South Africa, and those 5 kings that he showed me, or those principalities, were the main entities that were controlling not just only Durban but also the whole nation. Now I have been able to encounter principalities also that had a global influence, but not all spirits have a global influence. For example, the spirit of false religion has a global influence. The spirit of the false church have a global influence. The spirit of Satanism have a global influence, but it's spotty, spotty because it's not everywhere. So it's not globally strong. If you go to some parts of California, there are Satanists there. If you go to some parts of New York, you see some type of witches and strange individuals, there are Satanists there. If you go to the middle of America, you go to Kansas and places like that, there are Satanists there. But there are spots all over. So their global influence is not strong. If you come to the spirit of ancestral worship, it is not a global thing. Even though there are people who believe in their forefathers and saints and dead people and purgatory and all kinds of things, but the ancestral worship is unique to the southern hemisphere. That's where the strength is. So you have to understand that. If you talk about the spirit of the witch doctor and the Sangoma, of course there are witch doctors all over Africa, but the Sangoma is a unique witch doctor that operates with a principle that we will delve into in following meetings, and that is endemic to the inhabitants of southern Africa. And the strength, one of their strongest bases, is in Durban or in KwaZulu-Natal. So you have to understand the dynamics and the workings of how these things operate. And based on that, you can now look and say, okay, this is the entity. Now, let me give you a practical example of what happened. When I was doing battle in Durban, there was a particular thing I was dealing with that I needed to overcome. So as I was dealing with that spirit, I caught that snake, I caught his head, I caught the head of the snake in the clouds in one of those early mornings, I think in the month of October. And then from there, I now found out that that spirit was representing another entity. So I followed that entity or that line of his drawage in the realm of the spirit, and then I found myself in California. And when I found myself in California, I discovered that there were 3 spirits that were in charge of that mountain or that mindset or that thing I was dealing with, and it had to do with the arts and entertainment. And there were 3 entities that were controlling that whole realm, 3 entities, and the whole of the 3 of them were based out of California. I saw the one that was based in the heart of Los Angeles, which was responsible for the movies and all the content that were being produced. And I saw that the agenda was very simple. They were pushing a lot of smut, a lot of filth, obscenities, profanity, sexual content, over-sexualization, and all kinds of things. They were trying as much as possible to make sure that the movies and the content that was produced from Hollywood was coming out of there. I also saw that they were the ones that were in charge, because that spirit was in charge of pornography. Now, when I got to California in the realm of the spirit, I saw those 3 entities. I saw one specifically that was in charge of pornography, was in charge of obscenity, was in charge of immorality, all sexual addictions. I saw the Playboy Mansion this way. I saw that it had its own subtle take that it had unleashed in the 50s using Soft Magazine, and a lot of young boys contacted sexual addiction, masturbation, and all kinds of sexual deviances, pornographic, soft porn as they call it, images, girls on their walls and all that. From the Playboy Mansion, I saw all that. Then I saw another zip code on this other side that had to do with hardcore pornographic content. And that was movies that were being produced and now pushed out all over the earth, and they were doing their bit. And before you know it, America was covered, and parts of many other places in the world where normally those things are banned. And there are still quite a good number of nations in the Middle East and places like that where those type of things are not even allowed. Now, the internet has made it even more global, but then you have to understand that those spirits have a global influence. Why? Because they have found ways to push their filth non-stop, saturate their immediacy to where now it becomes numb that the people are even called porn stars. So they are called stars because they are actors, but they are actors in the adult movie industry. And the content they are pushing is all within the confines of the things that they have believed that is part of what they should be doing with their lives. Now, I saw the spirit that was in charge of that, and it was doing its thing. Then I saw another spirit. That spirit was in charge of profanity, cursing, using filthy language. I saw that spirit, even though that spirit was highly operational in California, but I saw that the main source of that spirit was based in New York. I saw that it was in the arts and in the presentation and industry and all that. I saw, you have to understand that the presentation industry has 2 arms. There is the movie part of the production, then there is the stage part of the production. The stage part of the production was citadeled in New York, while the movie part of the production was citadeled in Los Angeles. Even though today Atlanta is fighting to see if it can have a piece of that pie, and to a certain level it does, but wherever that spirit spirit sourced from will be the main place that it drives the agenda. So that means the strength of that spirit will be prevalent there. And now, because since I was chasing a mandate and I was trying to get to the root, because I won't stop until I get to the root of it. So in the realm of the spirit, I chased it down. Then I saw how those three spirits position themselves. So one specifically was for all the pornographic, smut, obscenities, uncladdedness and everything that has to do with the unclean spirit. Then I saw how profanity. So those profanity were very prevalent amongst the comics, those who do stage presentations and tell jokes and all that. And if you notice, that's always the biggest thing, that they all need to kiss the ring, because if they won't profane, they can't go big. And there's a reason why, because there's a spirit in charge of, because I saw that spirit. I could even tell you what it does, how it looks like, his name, everything. But I'm not going to do that in this particular session, because that is not where I'm going. Then there was a third spirit. That spirit, the spirit that today that is in charge of the LGBT community. So I don't know how they call those, the alphabet mafia as it is called today. So I saw that spirit was there. So listen again and let me re-explain. First, there was a spirit of obscenity that is in charge of all pornographic, all uncleanliness, everything that has to do with sexual, bearing yourself, being naked on screen in any form or way, sexual addiction of any kind, be it of the pedophiliac type, if there be any kind of sexual deviances, be it boy love as they call it, whatever it is, all was citadel with that spirit. Then there was another spirit, that is the spirit of profanity, that is in charge of curse words. That's why if you see today, all the profanity that is used today, go and watch movies, some of the movies that came out in the 80s, all those languages were used. Today is now prevalent. Even the young people use a lot of words that you can't believe. But if you watch a movie in the 80s and in the 70s that were produced in Los Angeles, you'll be shocked that some of those languages were used very clean and clear. But because it was still endemic and local to that community, maybe we didn't hear it. But now it has become so prevalent. So you have to understand that is another spirit, and that spirit rests more with those that are into the comedic world, and it controls that one. Now there is a third spirit. The third spirit is a spirit that is in charge of the LGBTQ. It is the spirit of effeminacy. It is also the spirit that powers the gay agenda and also the trans agenda and all that. So in that particular session I had, I was battling and fighting that spirit. And then it took me to California, as I had explained. And when I got to California, I now saw clearly that this was the spirit that I've been trying to take out. This was the spirit I was trying to take out. So we leave it at that. Thank you for watching this episode of Son of Elijah. My name is Mac the Lion, and I've been your host. I hope you were able to make sense of that which I was communicating. I actually intend to continue this series and bring us even closer to the depth of understanding the principles of victory over the forces and installations that are working night and day to control the lives and micromanage the destinies of people. We have an innate determination to have the victory that God has scheduled for us. And that victory is not just mine alone, but for everyone that shall be a part and a parcel of that which has been placed before us. Thank you for watching. My name is Mac the Lion. Please do like our page. Please do like our channel. Please do share it so that the algorithm can also pick up on it and present it to more people with more opportunities to jump into that which we have. I'm so glad that I'm here to serve you and to see to it that you receive even more of that which I bring to the table. Thank you for watching this episode of Son of Elijah. Please also feel free to be a part of what we do. If you also want to give in any formal way to this program, Son of Elijah, please kindly do so by following the link that you will find below, right down there at the PayPal button. You are very free to do as God may lay in your heart. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.